So on this flight, the goal was to make it to that snow patch that you can see off in the distance. I was all loaded up with a fresh battery and had a chair set up, and even had a couple spotters. The storm was kind of heading our direction, but I felt that it being as calm as it was where we were, that it was worth a shot to see if I could make it out there, and might even be able to catch some good footage of the storm while I was on my way. The first launch there went a little funny. I'm not quite sure why my airplane decided to turn hard left there for a second during the auto launch, but it managed to climb on out just fine. And so once I got myself situated in the chair, I just pointed it towards that snow and started to gain some altitude. I was a little higher throttle setting than I normally am, just knowing that I wanted to try and get out there fairly quickly so that I could beat the storm a little bit. And as you'll see, we start to see quite a bit of lightning on our way there, which was pretty fun to watch. The air was actually fairly smooth for the most part. It wasn't until I got quite a bit closer to the storm that I started to get pushed around. I was fighting more of a wind though than what you can see here. That wind was kind of pushing against me, and so the return trip, once I turn around, I gain a lot of ground speed. Usually I'm cruising at around 35 miles per hour over the ground, and you can see here I'm more like 17, 18 miles per hour over the ground. So there was definitely a wind up there. But the lightning show was sure fun to watch, and where I'm sitting on my chair I still wasn't getting wet, but here as we get closer to the snowy peak, we'll start to see a little bit of raindrops, which become much more noticeable once we turn around and we're actually flying with the wind and making the raindrops pass us not quite so fast. But at this point I'm getting pretty close to the snow, and my spotters are saying, you got to turn around, you're getting too close to the storm, but I was so close that I didn't want to give it up. I kept saying, no, I'm almost there, I'm almost there. And just here I got hit with some rain. You can see it's covered up my view just a little bit, but I'm just thinking, oh, I'm so close to the snow. And so I'm finally getting here, and there you see the video jump for just a second. And in my goggles I actually lost view for a second there, and it's going to happen again, where you'll see the video just kind of jump a little bit. And so I was losing my feed, and being almost 4 miles out, I decided it wasn't worth risking losing my airplane, so I turned around. And you can see now that we've turned around, you can kind of see the raindrops that were coming past. So I've gone ahead and sped up the video feed for the return flight. It did go much faster though. I think I was averaging well into the 40s and sometimes into the 50s mile per hour on my return flight here. But it was still a very pretty view. That stormy sky made for a very enjoyable view during my flight, and I come back and you get a good view of the reservoir. And I had to gain so much altitude to get up to that peak that now that I'm back to where I'm sitting, I have to bleed off most of that altitude. And so that's what I did here, is I had to take a couple turns around, and then I did a quick flyby to kind of get an idea of where I was going to land. I did one more flyby to kind of get a better feel for it. And now here I've turned around and I'm getting ready to do an extended kind of downwind, and then I'll come in and line up for the approach. I did end up landing with a tailwind, and so you'll see that I was aiming to be touched down and stopped right next to the cars, and I went a little bit past that just because I was landing with the tailwind, and so it pushed me. I didn't slow down near as quickly as I thought I would. But I was able to land on the road without any issue. It sure is pretty to fly over all of this, to see the winding, meandering streams on the side, and to watch all of the trees and everything. It was a very pretty and enjoyable flight. And even with the storm, I wasn't ever very stressed out. My spotters seemed to be kind of stressed during all of that, but I was just having a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this flight.